Money and Main Street with award-winning journalist GiovannaDrpicReel.
You're watching another edition of Money and Main Street. We're up to our CEO sit-down segment. But at this point, she's not sure that there's even going to be a market for her services in this area for some time.
Files One News, Evening Edition.
This is Fios One News. I'm GiovannaDrpicReel. Mike Gilliam is off this evening. Thanks for watching. We'll get to our top stories in just a moment. But first, it's time for your weather on the ones. And more than 30 points down in the latest poll, New York Republican gubernatorial candidate Rob Astorino comes out fighting against Governor Andrew Cuomo. And yet another New Jersey fire claims a life, this time in Union City. Police on Long Island have made an arrest in the murder of a young mother from Medford. Law enforcement officers in Mexico say a body found near a motorcycle in La Mahawa Beach belongs to a New York man who was reported missing earlier this year. A Rockland boy is among the 3 Israeli teenagers reported missing in the West Bank last week. According to a new report, 5 prominent Muslim Americans are among some 200 U.S. citizens who had their emails collected by the NSA and the FBI over a 6-year period. Today, the world's best competitive eaters met at Coney Island to eat their way to glory. And we want to thank you so much for making us a part of your weekend. I'm GiovannaDrpicReel. Remember, Fios One is your local source for news and weather, only on Verizon. Every day, thousands of illegal immigrants cross into the United States. We know some of their stories. Many of them are good people, just desperate for new lives. But for every one of those stories, there are bad ones too. Drugs, lawlessness, crime. Tonight, we take you beyond the border. We meet the people who are affected most by the stream of illegal immigrants, the people who live along the border. For them, it's a daily fear, and they say something has to be done to fix it. But whose problem is it anyway? My search for answers took me to the Arizona-Mexico border, a picture that to so many may seem like nothing more than barren fields. But for this married father of 5 who crossed into the U.S. illegally 18 years ago and has just been deported, these fields were his picture of opportunity. There we go. We found a blue flag. The journey is so dangerous. Church mission groups leave blue flags along the desert, marking areas where crossers might find supplies that could save their lives. And 23 miles away from the border, this man sees a very different picture.
I pack a gun, and everybody does. You're crazy not to.
For him, these fields represent the danger and chaos that come with unsecure borders.
I'm no different than the guy in Queens, or the guy in Arlington, Virginia, or the guy in Helena, Montana. I don't want somebody jacking with me.
Ed Ashurst runs a cattle ranch near the border. His family has lived here for 3 generations. But he says his ranchland and the surrounding area have become a den for illegal drug activity. What are we looking at here? What are these different marks?
Each one of these black marks with the purple outside is a dope load that has been apprehended.
His home is vulnerable.
I'm looking out this window, and there's a guy has his hand on the doorknob, and he's bashing the door in with his right shoulder.
But leaving his home is not an option.
We like living here. That's who we are.
U.S. citizens like Ed say the government isn't doing enough. My photographer and I kept pressing on toward the border. We had an eerie feeling as we reached Sassabee. It's a border town where the general store sells not only the usual fare, but also mattresses, antique wood stoves, and hollow point bullets. Sassabee has a population of 12. It can swell to 25 during hunting season. We happen upon this unidentified resident who packed a .40 caliber pistol in plain view.
My message is, I know my rights. Don't mess with me.
He says while drugs and the illegal immigrants keep on coming, the Border Patrol is not doing enough to protect U.S. citizens.
Everything still flows day and night. If anything, it's flowing faster and harder.
We get to the official U.S.-Mexico border. The U.S. Border Patrol's Tucson sector dispatches 3,300 agents to monitor the wall and desert. And they're responsible for more than 90,000 square miles. The spokesman for the Tucson sector says apprehensions have actually decreased from 616,000 in 2000 to 241,000 last year. He says that's a good thing. According to him, it shows that increased awareness, manpower, and technology like stadium lights and surveillance cameras are deterring illegal immigrants from crossing into the United States. I'm standing here in Nogales, Arizona, but I've decided I am going to cross the border into Nogales, Mexico. This is where I leave my photographer and press forward to cross legally into Mexico with my personal camera and camcorder.
One thing that we hear a lot is this idea that, well, why didn't people go the legal route? Why are they walking across the desert? They should get in line. They should do it legally. For a lot of people, there is literally no line to get into. If they have a family member that is a U.S. citizen, they can get in a line that's 12 to 14 years long.
Hannah Hafter is a volunteer with No More Deaths, an organization that helps illegal immigrants get back on their feet. She says some can apply for an agricultural work visa and work for minimum wage in the fields, but
not have any regular labor standards apply to them because the Fair Labor Standards Act doesn't include agricultural workers working 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
While people like Hannah search for answers,
Come here, girls.
Ashurst tries to keep up the only life he's ever known. He wonders when a real solution will come. He doesn't blame the illegal immigrant. He blames the government for not finding a workable solution to the lawlessness on the border. At this makeshift bus terminal, I look at the man we met earlier and at all of the other illegal immigrants who are waiting to be returned home. I wonder, what goes through their minds? Are they thinking of returning to their loved ones? Or are they already thinking of returning to the U.S., the place they call home? And the trip was truly eye-opening, from realizing just how treacherous the journey is for those who make it, to hearing a Border Patrol agent say that sometimes his weapon is no match for the ones he sees out there in the desert. This is the story of how new media collided with good old-fashioned communication and brought the memories of a 9/11 victim back to life in the form of a love letter. When was the last time you heard about someone writing an honest-to-goodness love letter? Not an email, not a text message, but a young adult who poured out his heart to the young woman he loved with just pen and paper.
Dear Lisa, I really miss you and I'm always thinking about you.
Lisa McDonald now works in a TV newsroom in Orlando. She was the recipient of this letter when it was first written, back in 1995. She tucked it away and recently rediscovered it.
The first thing I thought of was, I want to keep that memory. I want to keep the memory.
The letter was from her then boyfriend. After she found it, she wrote about it on Facebook and explained why she couldn't bring herself to throw it away.
But it was from someone who later died in the North Towers of the World Trade Center on 9/11.
That someone was Brian Cashia. The young man who wore his heart on his sleeve died at the age of 26.
I feel this way because I know I never felt this way before about anyone else.
Brian sent Lisa the letter along with this giant white teddy bear when he was just 20 years old.
Immediately there was chemistry. I mean, there was just that feeling of trust.
The letter resurfaced 18 years after Brian wrote it, less than a month before the 12th anniversary of his death in the World Trade Center attacks.
It's nice because this letter makes me smile.
The story about the love letter could have ended there, but it didn't. I read Lisa's Facebook post and decided to track down both Brian's mother, Sabrina, who's now suffering from multiple sclerosis, and his 91-year-old grandmother, Hildy, in Bayside, Queens. I shared the letter with them.
Oh my God.
You could see memories and feelings well up that only a mother could understand, as Sabrina read what her boy wrote about the girl he once loved.
And I've always wanted someone to like me for who I am.
But since Lisa lived in Florida and Brian lived in New York, Brian didn't know if he should continue a long-distance relationship.
And I said, well, Brian, things like that usually don't last forever.
It didn't last forever. Lisa and Brian's relationship ended 6 months after it began. He moved on and eventually got engaged. She moved on, got married, and started a family. And then 9/11 happened. Brian's remains were never found.
But I wish they would find, I don't know, like a fingernail. Anything.
What do you think we as people can take from this with 9/11?
You should stay in touch because you never know if you're here tomorrow.
And the message was delivered with a love letter. What would you tell Brian?
Hold on. That's a tough question. That I miss you. I wish we hadn't lost touch with each other.
GiovannaDrpicReel, FiOS 1 News.